Well, hello and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Pastor Lauren Christensen. My best friend and creative partner, Chris, and I decided that it would be fun now that we've got everything operational on YouTube and on the new webpage for the Danish Countryside Chapel and the different platforms of communications that we've got going now so we can reach further with our ministries. We're already getting questions coming into us, which is kind of exciting. And so Chris actually waded through some of the questions that we've had. And so these are some of the questions that have been given to us since we started this channel a month and a half ago. The first one comes from Emily Johnson from Fargo, North Dakota. We thought it'd be more fun if the first time that I saw these questions was when I actually, answered them. But these are questions that have came in off the internet. How did the idea of starting a church in an over 100-year-old barn come about, and what has been the community's response to it? Wow, that's a tough one. No, it's not. This barn had cattle in it and hogs in it too until 1999. And at that time, grain wasn't worth much. And so Alan Peterson, who still owns the property here, of course, he's my landlord, looked into viticulture and started looking into starting a winery, and then did start Danish Countryside Vines and Wines, which I now own. He's still my landlord. And he taught me the trade, and when he taught me the trade, and I took over the winery, that was part of the deal. His daughter Jennifer's my partner. And I started marrying a lot of people out here because I had just gotten divorced. I left the Catholic Church and came back to the Lutheran Church. And that's why I always reiterate and reaffirm that I still love the Catholic Church. I love the Lutheran Church too. I was born a Lutheran. I'm a cradle Lutheran. And so when I got divorced, I came back because I wanted to help out at home, because I could see we were going to need it. And we do. And so with this barn, as I started to marry people out here, as a deacon, what happens after people get married? Well, they start having kids. And a lot of these people, they don't belong to any church. It would shock people if they knew how many people don't belong to any church at all. And so they would come out to me to baptize their kids. So I started baptizing a lot of kids. And then the next thing you know, they'd bring Cousin Ernie out here and Grandpa, what's his name? But they would bring, I baptized a 98-year-old man out here about a year ago. And it was one of the most beautiful things I think I've ever been involved with. And so as my friend Chris and I looked at the decay that continues to occur in these rural communities and the complete abdication of a lot of responsibility on the part of the establishment, I'm sorry to say, led to the formation of this into an official chapel by me going to the attorney and doing it the right way and getting set up as a 501c3 corporation. We're an independent Lutheran church so that we can preach the gospel and do it without being pulled hin and fro by all of the current cultural trends that just dog all of the different denominations right now. I'm an LCMC pastor. I'm fine with the LCMC. But, I'm a Lutheran, but I'm a Christian first. And all the denominations out here have been suffering terribly. And it seems like the reason the evangelicals are doing so good, if you want to label them like that, in these big auditorium churches, is because they've been given no alternative in the country. In the small towns, people are too quick to accept defeat, throw their hands up, say, well, I guess we got to go to the big city to have any entertainment or to go to church or whatever. And furthermore, church isn't entertainment. Church is church. Entertainment is entertainment. And you shouldn't mix the two. That's all I'm going to say about that. The community's response to it, it's the same as any community's response whenever there's something new shows up. I was held in a little bit of suspicion and contempt because people weren't sure what we were up to out here. And they didn't know what our mission was, and so people automatically, seems these days it's even worse, jump to conclusions and assume the worst. Oh, it's going to be a competitor. They're always going to take what we've got. Well, my question is this: what do you have? Dwindling congregations, unmotivated people that are in charge of them, Sunday schools that are empty, confirmation classes that have 1 or 2 kids when there should be 10 or 12. And so what we did was we started this as a response to all that, not in contempt, but in response, because we're not willing and we're not ready to give up. I'm not ready to give up. And I don't think anybody else in the country should be ready to give up. Even if there's only half of us, somebody's going to be here. The next question comes from Michael Rodriguez from El Paso, Texas. Can you describe the unique approach that Danish Countryside Chapel takes to bringing people back to church in their hometowns? This must have came off the web page, or the blog, I mean. The blog is on the Danish Countryside Chapel webpage. The only way that we're going to get people in the country to understand that they need to go back to church in their hometowns is to scream that you need to go back to church in your hometowns. There's no other way to do it. And it's, again, it is a reaction to the overreach of some of these metropolitan churches that are swallowing up all of our congregations. And it's not that they mean to do any harm, but they are doing harm, because we don't have the ability to sustain our own ministries back here. And so the only way that we're going to do it is to take charge and to fight. And that doesn't mean put up our dukes and fight. It means think. Find alternative ways. Find solutions. We can't find a pastor. Well, then find a different approach. The credentials are too high. There's not enough people. Then fine. Lower them a little bit so we can get people in there and make them complete the rest of them after they get in. Hire people for a reasonable wage rather than saying you have to hire them for this much or they won't come. Find somebody that will come. Benjamin Lee from Portland, Oregon. What have been some of the biggest challenges you faced in starting and leading Danish Countryside Chapel, and how have you overcome them? Most of the challenges are just, they're legal challenges. You have to go, the only right way to do it is to go through an attorney. I mean, you can go through different legal companies online, but it's snag after snag after snag. Nobody trusts you. You have to prove yourself again and again, and it's passwords and suspicion and encryption. It's just, let the attorneys handle it. That's my advice on that. We overcame them by a systematic approach, and by finally throwing our hands up like most men do, and at some point, hopefully, and realizing that it is helpful to read the directions and to just do what you're supposed to do to get things rolling. Elizabeth Garcia, Albuquerque, New Mexico. Can you speak to the importance of welcoming other denominations into your church's mission and how this aligns with Lutheran beliefs, with your Lutheran beliefs? I think being a cradle Lutheran and a happy Catholic for about 15 years and back to being a Lutheran again has been a wonderful experience. Because I can honestly tell you, understanding the way that the Catholics view the sacraments, the way that the way that they go about, sorry guys if I'm not saying this well, the way they go about being Catholic, if they do it right. I mean, if you work the system that St. Thomas Aquinas intended you to work, and you go to church, and you work all the sacraments, you do all the sacraments, you perform, you go to, you do the things that you need to do. You go to confession, and you have a healthy confession, not one where you just rattle off a bunch of canned stuff and get out of there. Where you do pray the rosary, where you do understand the history of the church and why things are done as they are. I think that if you're a good Catholic, then that's great. I also think if you're a good Calvinist, then that's great too. But if you're going to say that you're something, if you're going to ascribe to something, if you're going to announce that you're something, then be something. Don't be a spectator. Get involved. Be a Lutheran, be a Methodist, be a Seventh-day Adventist, be a Catholic. Be whatever it is that you're going to be, but be it well. If being is what we're up to here, ontologically speaking, then be well. And do what you say that you do, for real. Jacob Wright from Savannah, Georgia. How do you see Danish Countryside Chapel growing and evolving in the coming years, both in terms of membership and impact on the community? Man, this is a tough one. I think that our online presence is going to grow. I think YouTube's going to grow, but I don't want YouTube to be an excuse to not go to church. So I'm never going to put full church services or anything like that on YouTube. I'm going to put sermons after the fact. We have chapel every Sunday at 9 a.m. At 9 a.m. out here. We have it inside upstairs where we are right now. In the summer, we're going to be outside on the patio. Have a party on the patio. It's going to be great. And then I have the Brayton Lutheran Church, of course, in Brayton, Iowa as well. And we are supporting one thing, and that's getting people back to church. So I don't want to use the internet as a way to keep people from going back to church. But we'll keep a rolling membership in here, and while we're teaching people about going to church and about baptism and about the sacraments, we can also talk to them about their family's background and maybe what their church background is, where their grandma used to go to church, where their folks went to church, that sort of thing. And then get a hold of the pastor in their hometown that's there right now and get them back where they were going, so they can get the ball rolling again, rather than just this constant hemorrhaging. And it's not just going to the big cities. It's people that stop going to church in the small towns. They go to the big cities once in a while, but other than that, they don't do anything. And going somewhere once in a while as a spectator is not an affiliation. And furthermore, it's not fair to your church in your hometown. If you're going somewhere else and they're getting all the goodie out of you, and you go back home and do nothing, even if you tithe, it's not enough. Be a part of your community. You know, everybody's got to get away. I get that. But you don't need to run away from who you are. And you are who you live with. Get off my soapbox now. Samantha Patel, Des Moines. How has your background and experiences influenced your approach to ministry, particularly in the rural Midwest? Well, oddly enough, I lived in Germany for 3.5 years in the Air Force. Both my kids were born over there. Loved it over there. I didn't have to be there very long to understand something that shocked me. Nobody goes to church. And I mean nobody. The Catholics go a little bit better than the Lutherans, but not as much as you'd think. And it's like, you know, the church is, of course, run by the state, staffed by the state. So it's almost like walking into a National Park Service run business or something, and, you know, there's the guy, you know, there's the pastor, and there's the... But it was like everybody was just kind of going through the motions and nobody was really doing anything. And then I thought, that's not the way I remember it. But by the time I came back to the United States in the late 90s, it was getting like that. And so the only people that went to the church, according to the guy on the street, and this is the truth, is either grandma and grandpa, the goody two-shoes, the guy that was in big trouble and had to straighten his act out, or people coming through town, but for the most part, people just didn't go. And it happened more and more. And then all of a sudden, these evangelical churches started popping up out of nowhere, building new facilities, and everybody was wild about that. But to me, all that is the same thing as when a new restaurant opens up and, well, this old rag, you know, phooey, let's go over here and see what they're doing. You go over there, wow, it's razzle-dazzle, everything's new and it smells good and you can smell the new paint and we can have a cup of coffee and a donut and watch Pastor What's-His Face up there, and that's fine. But meanwhile, the church in your hometown is falling apart and many times being taken over by other people. You don't even have any control over it. And while you go to Des Moines or to Omaha or to Minneapolis or to Kansas City, or wherever you go to, the churches that you were brought up in, that you claim to still be a member of so you can be buried there, they get nothing from you. No service, no help, nothing. How is that fair? So then someday when you pass away, the pastor down at this town, at this church that doesn't know you, can bury you. Or you can have a service like, however many at these ginormous churches, and have people have to drive 70 miles to your burial. And the only reason I bring it up is because I have to bury a lot of people. New pastors do that. And it's okay. It's been an honor and a privilege to be able to be there for all these families. But I've seen what it's like when people that are not affiliated with churches pass on. And it's not comfortable for anyone. And churches that you just go to once in a while to see and spectate rather than really truly getting involved, it's not the same. Daniel from Honolulu, Hawaii. Can you speak to the role that faith plays in the lives of rural communities and how Danish Countryside Chapel seeks to address the spiritual needs of those communities? By being there among them. By being here, being accessible, being findable. I'm a human being that you can actually get your hands on. I'm here all the time. I'm the closest thing to a Lutheran monk you'll ever find. The key to ministry in the Lutheran Church is pastoral care, and that's why we can't keep falling down on this. Martin Luther was appalled at the countryside, the fact that nobody was taking care of anybody, that the church wasn't paying attention to them, and subsequently there are so many Lutheran churches in the country. And I could go on and on and on, but now we're getting long. Olivia Myers, Cleveland, Ohio. How do you balance your responsibilities as pastor and a winery owner, and how do these two roles intersect in your daily life? Does being an alcoholic come into play in these? Being an alcoholic comes into play in everything that I do. And believe it or not, for the most part, it doesn't bother me a bit because I'm busy. I think the key to staying sober is to serve other people as fast as you can. As soon as you get done serving these people, go find the next people to serve. Do it in Jesus' name so that you don't get heady about it, and you'll be okay. Otherwise, you're on your own, and that's scary. I'm always a pastor. When I'm in the vineyard, when I'm in the winery, when I'm in the church, it doesn't matter. I'm Pastor Lauren no matter when. Whether I've got my collar on, whether I don't, it doesn't matter. I am Pastor Lauren, the alcoholic, rock musician, ex-sergeant. No matter where I go, and no matter what I do, and no matter what I say. When I'm wrong in all those accounts, and hopefully when I'm doing something right, then that's good too. William Taylor, Billings, Montana. I was stationed in Great Falls for a little while. What advice would you give to others who are interested in starting a church or pursuing ministry in a rural community? Don't start a church. The only reason I did this is because we need an HQ, we need a headquarters that's independent to base this ministry out of, because I don't want to worry about what the denominations think. I want to worry about, hey, we need pastors in all of our churches out here in the rural areas that are taking care of your people. And I'm going to scream on all of their behalves. I'm an LCMC pastor, but I like the LCA fine. And I like the Missouri Synod, I like the Wisconsin Synod, and just about every other synod under the sun. Do we agree on everything? Absolutely not. If you and I were together in about a half hour, I guarantee you, we could find something that we disagreed a lot on. But the question is, can we be adults about it and work together? Or do we have to get mad at every turn and throw down and stomp off with our ball in our hand? And it does get ridiculous. So those are some of the questions that have been coming in this last year that we've been open, that the Danish Countryside Chapel has been fully, functionally going. But Chris thought we would harvest them, and I would finally answer these poor people. They've probably moved on along by now. But now that we've got it up on, got things going on YouTube, now everybody can kind of get in on the whole point. The point is to be out here constantly screaming, go to church. Do not stay home. Go to church. Don't be a spectator. Be a member. Be a real member. Know what you are. Say what you are. Talk about Jesus. Take care of your friends and neighbors. Jesus said we are to love, he asked what the first commandment was. You're to love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your strength. He said, you speak correctly. But the second commandment, equal to the first, or in some translations like the first, is love thy neighbor as thyself. And love thy neighbor as thyself does not mean that you take what you need and go on. It's that you stay where people need you to see that they get what they need also. It's what Jesus would want. And I'm proud to be able to do something this right in my life. Amen. Whether we succeed or not, I know it's the right thing to do. May God bless all of you. Amen.